Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this Mapei Academy and the latest training webinar. Today we're going to be talking about large format tiles. We'll be talking about substrate preparation, how to lay them, and things to look out for. The large format tiles, I've just got a few examples just to give people an idea of what we actually refer to when we are talking about large format. So in most cases, we're talking about tiles that are larger than the 5,000 square centimetres. So metre by fives and so on and so on. Tiles are getting bigger and bigger these days. We are even dealing with 3.2 by 1.6 panels. We're dealing with 1200 by 1200 tiles at 12 mil thick and 20 mil thick. So the tiles are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Large format back in the day when I was tiling was, a 300 by 300 was considered a pretty big tile or pretty big piece of stone. So things have come a long way. Anything that's greater than these sizes really should be treated as a large format tile or stone. We're going to cover off 4 topics today. We're going to talk about substrate, we're going to talk about expansion, we're going to talk about adhesive coverage, and we're going to talk about job planning. The important thing when it comes to large format tiles is that the larger the stone, the flatter the surface needs to be. So small tiles can follow an undulating surface, where large tiles just simply can't. So packing up with adhesive is very hit and miss. So, we often see, a notch trowel will basically follow the undulations of the substrate, and the notch trowel governs the thickness or the size of the ridges of adhesives that we're actually dealing with. So if you are going over an undulated surface with a notch trowel, quite often poor contact is the result. Leveling compounds are the solution for flat level surfaces. Patching compounds are the best options for ramping or for patching holes in walls and or in floors as well. Leveling compounds, this is a short video of just showing the fluidity of the leveling compounds. They're very loose products. We make many different types. We make about 8 different types of leveling compounds. For the tiling world, we find that the UC leveler is the best product, or the most suited product. And this is due to, one, the ease of use, and also the range of thicknesses that we can go to. So in one pour, we can go from 3 to 40 millimetres. We can go thicker by using aggregate, but you might want to step into a screed or, some form of bulk fill product when you do want to go thicker than that. In most cases, levelers are only to be used internally. For external works and for internal works, we use a product called a Diesel XP4. Now this is, as opposed to a self-leveling compound, it's more what we classify as a smoothing mortar. This particular product is rapid setting. Again, we can go from 3 mil to 20 mil, and being rapid setting, it's ready to tile after 4 to 6 hours, depending on the environment that you're working in and depending on the thicknesses that you are going to. For patching, as I said, for just chunks out of a concrete floor or chunks out of walls or just repairing some render or screed or anything like that, we have our patching compounds. We have Nivo Rapid for internal works, and we have Smooth and Repair for external works. And again, 1 to 20 mil. They're fast setting, so tiling after 4 to 6 hours. Expansion. All things expand as they heat up and contract when they cool. The larger the area, the greater the movement. So this is shown in this table here. You can see the tile sizes on the left-hand side. With a 100 by 100, you're looking at 0.05 of a millimetre, so a small rate of expansion. But as you get up into the bigger, the 600 by 600, we're looking at 0.3 of a millimetre. And so you can imagine when we get up into the larger panels again, so like the 3 metre by 1 metre, you know, and depending on the position that they're placed, the environment that they're put into, so like external, you know, exposed to sun and so on, the movement can be, you know, quite great and needs to be catered for. So thermal movement places stresses on the adhesive. It also places stress on the actual tile or stone itself. So the adhesive must be able to handle or tolerate this type of movement that's going to take place. Some people think about using isolation membranes, such as a waterproofing layer. They do assist in, you know, catering for substrate movement, but it only assists in the movement between the adhesive and the substrate. So the tile or the stone is still putting pressure on the adhesive because that's what's bonding it to the surface. Large format tiles, they require a deformable adhesives. So the S1 is a minimum, and the S2, again, when, you know, depending on the environment that we're putting into, the size and the colour of the tile that we're using or stone that we're using. In our range, the S1 products go from our ultralight, which is literally a lightweight adhesive, into our bulk fill, so the Keraflex Maxi. So remembering a large format can also be heavy as well. And then into our 2-part with the Kerabond and Isolastic, and or if you want the faster setting, into our Keraquick. The S2, so the more highly deformable adhesives. So we've got the lightweight range again, the ultralight S2. And then the difference of the latex in the S1 mixed with the Kerabond is the Isolastic 50 in the S1. For S2, we need to stick with the Isolastic in its full strength. And then we're into the fast version, we have our Keraquick mixed with our Latex Plus, which is an extremely high level of S2. So cement-based adhesives react with water. So they form these needles or fingers that bind everything together. The addition of the polymers is where we get the S rating. So, you know, in other words, those fingers will grow with cement when it's mixed with water, no matter what. But the polymers actually add or create the more deformable product. So in the S1, we have X amount of polymer, and then in the S2, we have more. So the greater the polymer, the better the adhesive, or the better the bond actually is. So when do we step up from an S1 to an S2? So external applications, in most cases, really an S2 is highly recommended, especially when we're going into areas where we're above 3 metres in height, or we've got west-facing walls so that we'll get sun all day, so the thermal stresses are greater, and or critical areas. So, you know, if we were doing the underside of that soffit that we're looking at there. So, you know, it really does, it pays to give us a call and let us work out what we think is best for your scenario. Heated screeds, another area where S2s are required. S1s, again, can handle it, but when we're into the large format tiles and stone, under or over the top of heated screeds, we do recommend to step up into the S2, the more deformable adhesives. When we're bonding to plasterboard, cement sheets, again, S2s are advisable for large, we're talking about large format here, but in most cases, an S1 will suffice. So if we were just doing one panel, you know, in a 2.7 room, so floor to ceiling, you know, an S1's going to be okay. For the fibre back, the resin backed or the glass backed tiles, we certainly recommend to step up into the S2 range because they are more difficult to bond to. They're a non-bonded, a non-porous surface, and in particular, if we're going into areas of dark colours, stresses from heat, then the S2 is much more desirable. So there are some applications that are more challenging again. So again, I talked about doing the undersides of sophites, bonding to lintels, that type of scenario, where we've got dark coloured tiles that are west facing, as we discussed before. You might want to go into, it's what we call critical works. So in a lot of these cases, we'll step up either into the epoxy, where we're not concerned about too much flexibility or deflection in the substrate, or a polyurethane if we are expecting some form of deflection to take place. So again, it's worth calling or contacting Mapei to work out the best solution. Let us work it out for you. So critical applications, as I said, sophites, working to height, western facing positions, they require epoxies in most cases. We've done applications of large format 3x1 panels. We just finished a job in Melbourne where we went up to level 37. Some of the building was west facing, so we stepped up into the epoxy. But as a minimum, we would go into the S2, and not a bad idea to step up into the higher end of the S2, so the Keraquick mix with the Latex Plus. So the darker the colour, again, we've touched on it already, but this slide replicates the importance of allowing for movement. So the adhesive, the main job of the adhesive is to bond something to something. So we cater for movement with movement joints. So the darker the tile, the more frequent the movement joints should be. Again, good idea to call Mapei. When we're going over timber or metal, we would step up into the epoxy and the polyurethanes every time with the metal substrates. With the timber substrates, it can be, there is a lot of variation in the different types of timbers. So it's a good idea to contact Mapei, but in most cases we would go into the high end of the S2s, or we would go into the polyurethane adhesives. So full coverage, I believe this is the most important aspect. So once we've established what adhesive we are going to be using, the most important thing is that they are used correctly. Thin, large format tiles are relatively brittle, so the strength really relies on the full support from the adhesive. So what we're actually doing is, if the adhesive is spread correctly and the tile is pushed into the adhesive correctly, we're actually making that thin piece of porcelain or that thin piece of stone actually thicker. So it really, there is a great importance of having full contact with the adhesive itself. Full coverage also eliminates voids. So voids behind the tiles or stone are areas where water and or air can accumulate, and the water and air will expand when it's heated, or in a snow situation or an ice situation. The water can freeze as well, and that creates expansion as well. So it puts pressure on the system. But when we're working in the alpine areas, a lot of people underestimate the importance of actually having that full contact, so we have no voids behind the tiles and stone. So this is a short video, just representing coverage. So when the tile is bonded correctly or fully supported, and I'll go into the way the adhesive spread in a little while, but when it's fully supported, you saw when you hit it with the hammer, there was virtually, the hammer was bouncing off. But where there's no support, we're talking about a dinner plate, so it can be smashed quite easily. So ensure the area is flat. That's what we've established before. Select the suitable adhesive. So now the actual spreading and bedding techniques. Use the appropriate notch trowel. This can depend on the size and the thickness and the weight of the stone. Spot bonding is never good enough nor appropriate. You can see in this job here, this is a job in Glenelg in South Australia, where the stone was spot bonded. One, it's affected the stone, so it was probably the wrong adhesive that was selected anyway. But this is a west-facing area with a dark coloured stone. And if you do your mathematics, when you look at those spots that are behind those the stone, you're probably looking at about a 15% contact area. So one, there is a weak bond because there's simply not enough adhesive. Two, there are large areas where water and air can accumulate and which will heat up over, in a hot day. And, that's going to put pressure on the system. And because the adhesive level is so low, the system's already weak or compromised. So that air and water that's going to flex underneath there is certainly going to eventually detach that stone. That's a relatively new job, and I predict that will probably last possibly summer that's coming, but it won't last much longer than that. The best method or the best technique for spreading the adhesive is always spread in the same direction when you're spreading adhesive onto the back of the panels and onto the wall. Even if you aren't going to double adhesive fix, then the minimum you should do is in one direction, so that when we bed the tile into the adhesive, we know we only have to push it in one direction, so across the ridges, to actually flatten out to create that good contact of adhesive. But for the large format, it's always best to have adhesive both onto the back of the panel and onto the substrate, and it's always done in the same direction, so you're getting this type of crosshatch. You're not getting the crosshatching where water and air can accumulate, and or the fact that the adhesive is not in contact with either the panel or the substrate. Well, one thing I forgot to say there, ensure full contact on the edges as well, especially with the thin tiles. We see that a lot. So you can see what adhesive should look like when you've actually pushed the tile or the stone across the bedding. So with my experience, I believe it's best to always spread the adhesive across your body, so from left to right or right to left, so that when you place the stone or the tile into the adhesive, you would push it away and pull it back to roll the ridges over, or in a wall application, you would push it up and pull it back down to roll those ridges over, so that we ensure that there's that full contact, so we collapse the adhesive. It's also very important when laying large format stones or tiles is to press the air from the centre out. So when we start pushing the tile or stone into the adhesive, we start in the middle and we move it out. There is a school of thought, and quite a lot of guys that do this, regularly. They'll use the orbital sanders with a lamb's wool bit on the face, and they will push it into the middle and then work it out through each side, squashing as much air out as possible and creating a nice bond or contact with the adhesive. It's always good to, a little tip that I've always used in all my tiling experience is when you do lay your first piece, it's a good idea to pull it up and have a look at it to make sure that you are getting the correct contact. It can be adjusted then if you notice that the adhesive is not quite a good enough contact or good enough coverage. Then you might need to alter your trowel size. You might need to alter your application of the adhesive. You might need to alter the bedding of the tile or stone into the adhesive. So whether you're going across or in a different direction. But it's a good idea to pick that issue up when you first lay your first piece, and then you know you're actually going to be right. So you've set a precedence as such. So job planning. It's very important when it comes to laying these large format panels, and I've been called onto many a job where they haven't put planning into place and they've caused themselves some issues. So job planning, so plan a cutting area for one. So these things aren't just the type of thing that you can lay down in a bathroom floor, for instance, and put it on a cutting machine and cut it. You might need to have your set up externally or in a larger area where you can fit the different types of cutting mechanisms that are required for cutting the larger panels. Consider the side access, very important aspect. So you can see the scaffold in there. If you were trying to carry a 3 metre by 1 metre panel up through those small staircases, it's an impossible thing to do. I've been onto jobs where I got called onto a job that were doing bathrooms on a 3rd level, and they were trying to work out how they were going to get the 3 metre by 1 metre panels into the bathrooms. And I said, maybe you should have thought about this beforehand. And they actually ended up having to cut the panels into 1 metre by 1 metre so that they could access or get proper access into the bathroom. So specialty handling equipment may be required when you are laying the larger format, the 3x1s. They are required. So those special frames with the suction cups on them, they're required not only for having it standing up so that you can install or place the adhesive onto the back of the panel, but certainly they're required for actually carrying the panels around, because they will flex, and if they flex before they're supported, they will break. Plan the locations of your expansion joints. Make sure you've got everything right and set to go before you go and put one of these large panels down. So I've also seen a 3 metre by 1 metre all glued up. Floor was glued up, and then they laid it down and they realised they were bridging a construction joint in the concrete, and it actually had to be taken up. And to lift up a 3 metre by 1 metre panel that's been correctly bonded down is a very, very difficult thing to do. So the references that, or the resources that we direct you to on our website is our selection chart. It talks about the different size of the stone or tiles that you're using. It talks about the backing that's on the stone, so resin backed or not backed. It just references you in those columns that you're seeing for the type of stone, the sizing and so on, and then what adhesive is best suited for that application. Other resources that I believe are very important, we have access to our work method statements on our website. This is just one in relation to the subject that we're talking about, internal and external installation of large format tiles. But we have all sorts of different work method statements available to you, like, bathrooms, swimming pools, glass mosaics in swimming pools, balconies, and so on. So a very good area to go and have a look and see if it relates to any systems that you're wanting to use. We can also customize these into a short form specification if required. Visit the ws.mapei.com/au. Going to our new area, the Mapei Academy. It has access to these webinars that we are putting on, but it also gives you access to the webinars that we've already done, so you can actually view them in at your own time, and you can forward us questions via the website whenever you like, so in your own leisure. One thing I did forget to do is say that you can pose any questions. We will be online for the next kind of 10 minutes or so you can type your questions in and I'll view them in a minute, and we can answer them straight away, or, as I say, feel free to contact us whenever you need to. So thank you for your attention today. I hope you've learned something. I think the main thing is, as I said, the large format tiles and stone need to be laid onto a very flat surface. To pick them up and put them down is a difficult thing. So prepare your surface before you start. Get the adhesive selection done correctly, and then apply your adhesive in the correct manner. So anyway, thanks a lot for your attention. I will go into the question area to see if there is any questions. Very good at telling people how to lay tiles, but these things I'm learning. It doesn't appear to be any questions. Anyway, as I say, if you feel like you need to contact us, it's a good idea to come through the Mapei website or call the office and get one of your reps to give you a hand in selections or any systems that you need to have a look at, go to the Mapei website. Thank you very much for your attention, and I will see you on the next one. The next one we're going to do is on paving. So it'll be relating to just a simple driveway paving and or roadways, speed humps, roundabouts, all those type of things, so heavy trafficked areas. And we're going to be following that one up with a swimming pool webinar that will be coming up in about a month's time. So there's plenty to learn, and enjoy our academy area of our website. Thanks for your time.